Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison LaGrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. India says its energy trade with the US is set to grow in the coming years. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal calls America a close friend and natural partner in the area of energy trade. Iran says it has received Russian MiG-29 fighter jets and that it is now looking to add Su-400 defense systems and the Sukhoi Su-35 jets to its arsenal. Chad announces a peace deal with an armed group in the north, bringing an end to years of conflict over the region's gold deposits. Spain's political crisis deepens as Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's wife is ordered to stand trial on embezzlement charges. A judge says there is evidence that she used public resources for private benefit. And authorities in Thailand rush to contain a massive 900 square meters sinkhole near a hospital in Bangkok, causing traffic chaos in the capital. Hello and welcome. We begin our show with the latest updates on Super Typhoon Ragasa. It made landfall a little while ago along China's southern coast. It touched down along the coast of Hailing Island in Guangdong Province's Yangjiang city after bringing Hong Kong to a standstill. Now take a look at these visuals. Turbulent water rapids, rocky waves and intense rainfall. This is what people in Hong Kong and Yangjiang have witnessed as the world's most powerful cyclone this year made landfall. The storm also brought ferocious winds, packing speeds of 145 kilometers per hour. Violent winds uprooted trees, toppled vehicles, and damaged infrastructure. Meanwhile, Hong Kong issued the highest level of warning for its citizens. More than 80 people have sustained injuries in the financial hub of China, while over 860 people were shifted to temporary shelters.
So we spent the entire night on the second floor waiting for the rescue team. Early in the morning, the rescue team arrived and took away the elderly and the children first, while we stayed behind. The reason we came here is because, while we were still at home, we received another notice saying there had been another round of overflow. So we came here with the rescue team by car.
China ordered businesses and schools to remain shut in at least 10 cities, with over 2 million people evacuated to safety. The typhoon also disrupted train and flight services, with hundreds of cancellations that left the passengers stranded.
What I heard was the piercing sound of the wind in the early morning, a mix of wind and rain. I usually sleep deeply, but it woke me up many times throughout the night. These trees were also uprooted. The power of nature is indeed very huge.
And before heading to Hong Kong, Ragasa battered Taiwan, claiming at least 15 lives there. The storm caused a decades-old lake barrier to burst, after which 18 people were left injured, while at least 17 remain missing, according to authorities. Taiwanese officials said that more than 7,600 people were evacuated due to the storm, which has left the streets of the island flooded.
I parked my car by the entrance, and when the water smashed the windows as it rushed over, by the time I got upstairs, it was already too late. I had to quickly run up to the second floor, and the water had already reached my chest.
Earlier this week, Ragasa also trampled parts of the northern Philippines. The storm killed at least 8 people, including 7 fishermen, and left behind a trail of destruction. According to scientists, severe storms are becoming increasingly powerful due to human-driven climate change. Ragasa is just another example of that. And moving on to the latest in U.S. immigration policy, the Trump administration has formally proposed a sweeping overhaul of the H-1B visa allocation system, a shakeup that could spell major changes in the random lottery mechanism used for decades. Now, this move comes just days after the White House announced a controversial $100,000 annual fee for H-1B visas. Now, the administration is scrapping the luck of the draw system used in the selection process. According to a Federal Register notice, the Department of Homeland Security has proposed a new weighted selection process, one that, quote, would generally favor higher skilled and higher paid aliens, unquote. In the U.S., the government refers to immigrants as aliens. Now, the notice stresses that employers at all wage levels would still have access to H-1B workers. Now, so what exactly are the proposed changes under the new criteria? The new rule gives an edge to applicants with higher wages, advanced degrees, and specialized skills. Under the proposed rule, the possibility of H-1B applicants with higher wages have more chances of being selected in the lottery-based system. Immigrants at wage level 4 will get 4 entries. Those at wage level 3 will get 3 entries. Those at wage level 2 will get 2 entries. And the ones at the last level will get just 1 entry into the system. With the proposal now formally published in the Federal Register, a 30-day public comment period is underway for giants, advocacy groups, and for potential applicants to have their say. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance have made their priorities clear. They want American jobs reserved primarily for American workers. Indians make up the majority of the H-1B visa holders. Out of around 400,000 H-1B recipients in 2024, around 71% were Indians. The number stood at over 72% in 2023 and 77% in 2022. Of the million-plus overseas students in the U.S., more than 331,000 were from India last year alone. Now, with these changes, fresh graduates entering the job market could be the worst hit, as entry-level salaries often fall into the lower wage tiers. Supporters of the rule argue it will reward top-tier talent and ensure fair competition, but critics warn it risks shutting out smaller companies and startups who depend on the lottery system to access global talent. Now, the Department of Homeland Security estimates the proposed rule could boost wages for H-1B workers by $500 million in 2026 alone, growing to $2 billion a year by 2029. But about 5,200 small businesses could face economic hardship due to potentially restricted access to the less paid, skilled foreign workers. If implemented, the overhaul would fundamentally rewrite the U.S. tech labor market, tilting the scale toward highly paid, highly educated workers and taking much of the randomness out of the system. And now let's tell you what Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni had to say about India's role in ending the ongoing wars across the globe. Listen in.
I think can play a very important role, but please, I'm not doing an interview.
Now, what you just heard were the comments made by Meloni on the sidelines of the 80th United Nations General Assembly session in New York. On the 10th of September, Meloni spoke with her Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi. The duo discussed various regional and global issues. The war in Ukraine was also a part of their discussions. Both leaders reaffirmed commitment to deepen India-Italy strategic partnership while emphasizing the need for an early and peaceful resolution. Prime Minister Modi lent India's full support in peace efforts. Prime Minister Modi has reiterated India's position several times, highlighting its commitment to global peace, development, and ethical leadership.
कठिन से कठिन परिस्थितियों में भी भारत और रूस हमेशा कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर चले हैं। हमारा करीबी सहयोग न केवल दोनों देशों के लोगों के लिए बल्कि वैश्विक शांति, स्थिरता और समृद्धि के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है। एक्सेलेंसी, यूक्रेन में चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय में हम लगातार चर्चा करते रहे हैं। हाल में किए गए शांति के सभी प्रयासों का हम स्वागत करते हैं।
Maloney's remarks also came at a time when the US has levied an additional 25% tariff on India. The Trump administration justified these duties on Indian goods as response for the country's import of Russian oil during Moscow's war with its neighbor Ukraine. Now, this has taken duties on Indian imports in the US to 50%. New Delhi has condemned these tariffs, calling them unfair, and defended its decision as one of its national interest. Now, the two nations have been holding trade talks, and amidst the negotiations, US President Donald Trump accused India and China of funding the war in Ukraine.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one?
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky took a step away from Trump's view. He said that India is mostly with us, and he called for Europe's stronger ties with India to wean it off Russian energy. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin lauded India's highly valued contributions in facilitating a resolution to his country's war with Ukraine. The comments were made during the SCO summit in China earlier this month. Now, India has emerged as a global power. Leaders from across the globe, like Maloney and Putin, now recognize India as a crucial player in the changing geopolitical situation and resolving serious international issues like wars. And finally, we turn to West Asia. Israel and Syria are in talks over a possible security agreement, but Syria's interim president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, has warned that without a deal, the region could be pushed into a new phase of turmoil. President Ahmed al-Sharaa, a former jihadist who rose to power after his forces swept out the longtime ruler Bashar al-Assad in December, is making a landmark first visit to the United States. This is the first visit to the US by a sitting Syrian president in nearly 6 decades. Speaking at an event hosted by the Middle East Institute, al-Sharaa warned that Israel's military strikes on Syrian territory and its continued airspace violations could ignite a new wave of regional instability. Israel, for its part, has defended its incursions, saying they are aimed at protecting minorities like the Druze population inside Syria.
We are not the ones creating problems for Israel. We are scared of Israel, not the other way around.
Now, Syria's new president says if negotiations with Israel continue to stall, the consequences could spill well beyond his country. Sharaa rejected any discussion of partition of the country's Druze majority areas. He insisted that his government would defend Syria's territorial sovereignty. Sharaa said any talk of partitioning Syria would also destabilize Iraq and Turkey, and he warned it would push the region back to square one after 15 years of war.
Those who are part of the Accord parties to the Abraham Accords are not neighbors to Israel. For instance, Syria as a neighbor has been subjected to over 1,000 raids, strikes, and incursions. Israeli incursions in Syria from the Golan Heights, and many were killed. So what applies to the parties in the Abrahamian Accords does not apply to Syria. We have made it clear that we will never accept the division of Syria in factions, because this would lead to trouble and risk against neighboring countries such as Iraq. Therefore, we have to reach peaceful solutions. We have to endorse the document related to the implementation of the convention, or the agreement of all the factions, including those supported by Turkey and those supported by Iran. We have to seize the opportunity in order to reorganize Syria, because this will benefit everybody, all factions, including the Kurds.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said over the weekend, pointed at some progress in the ongoing talks with Syria, but the two sides remain apart on multiple issues of concern.
We are holding talks with the Syrians. There is some progress, but there was still a ways to go. In any case, these discussions, as well as the contacts with Lebanon, would not have been possible without our decisive victories on the Northern Front and others.
So, with Syria seeking security guarantees as it talks with Israel continue, and diplomats at the United Nations watching closely, the message from Damascus is clear. Without an agreement, Syria risks heading back into turmoil. And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.